So The Fate of the Furious was directed by F. Gary Gray and it starred Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, Dwayne Johnson, Jason Statham. Charlize Theron is the new bad guy in this. This time around, following the events of Furious 7, Dom and Letty are now on their honeymoon, and they think everything's just fine, everything's back to normal now. And then when Vin Diesel runs into a woman played by Charlize Theron, she tells him, "Hey, you're going to work for me now." So afterwards, Dom goes rogue because apparently she has a secret on him that he doesn't really know about. And so the team tries to figure out, why did Dom go rogue? Why is Dom doing all these awful things? And they try to bring him back because family is the most important thing. So Fate of the Furious I didn't like it the first time I saw it. It wasn't as good as the last movie. And I feel like, at least with this whole, I won't say with this whole new version of Fast and Furious, but like they kind of just keep going up and down like a roller coaster. Like Fast 5 was good, but then 6 wasn't as good. Then 7 was pretty good, and then this one isn't so much, unfortunately. In rewatching it, I definitely did not like it again. So is there anything in this movie that does work? Admittedly, the action is pretty fun. There's a scene in a prison there's a fight in a prison between Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham where all the prisoners kind of get involved. That was fun. That was funny. And I definitely kind of liked it because you kind of saw the chemistry between Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham in that, which kind of led to Hobbs and Shaw later. There's also a shootout in the movie towards the end. Jason Statham is mainly taking out these bad guys, it's mainly kind of funny because he has Dom's kid in this movie for some reason. And he's trying to protect him, trying to like make sure the kid's like not listening or really paying attention. So he's trying to like shoot him out while taking care of this kid. It's ridiculous. It's funny at the same time. Like, I don't know if it's like intentionally funny or unintentionally funny. Either way, it kind of worked. And even though the last act of the movie is really ridiculous, which we're going to talk about, it's kind of fun to like kind of just giving myself to the absurdity and insanity of this movie. Yeah, these movies are cartoons, and I just kind of had to get used to it. Like, these movies are just so cartoonish at this point, and the fact that they can just, do the things that they do, particularly in the last act, it's definitely an experience. So, and admittedly, the movie can be funny, both intentionally and unintentionally. I feel like a lot of the laughs in this movie are pretty unintentional. Like, when they're, like, trying to be funny, it's not funny. But when it's not, like, when it's trying to, like, again, the final fight is pretty funny because, like, it's just so insane. The shootout with Jason Statham is pretty funny because the kid's, like, in these odd positions. Like, the kid has headphones on at one point, and the kid's like raising his thumb is like, or something like that. It was so ridiculous. I just had to laugh. And the only time where I actually did kind of laugh intentionally was when Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham were kind of like trading insults with each other. I felt like the chemistry was kind of a bit off in this movie. But there are some decent performances. Again, I kind of like seeing Jason Statham in this movie a lot more than I did in Furious 7. Dwayne Johnson, he was decent in this movie. Michelle Rodriguez does okay in this movie, kind of like trying to figure out like why Dom is acting the way he is. And Charlize Theron is an alright villain. I think, ironically, even though I don't like F9 that much, she's a better villain in F9 than she is here. And admittedly, it is kind of well shot for a Fast and Furious movie. Like, F. Gary Gray he's a pretty good director, so he has a lot of eye for flair. And there are definitely moments where it's like, okay, this looks pretty good. Like the scene in New York where all the cars are just falling from buildings and such. Looks cool and everything. Makes no sense, but it just looks cool. Which, yeah, that's basically the Fast and Furious in a nutshell. Makes no sense, but it looks cool. So, what don't I like about this movie? It's pretty much the entire third act and all the stuff in New York I thought was just kind of not so great. Pretty much everything in the last act makes no sense. Like, they're driving on ice, and The Rock literally takes a missile and throws it. And how? Just how? It's just ridiculous. I had to laugh at those. And admittedly, I feel like the chemistry between the main crew is a little bit off in this movie. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because Vin Diesel's not like in control of them or like kind of in charge of everybody on this team and they're all kind of like trying to figure out their own thing or not. Or if they're trying, or maybe because the jokes aren't as good because like this is the first movie without Paul Walker in it. It definitely didn't feel as fun. It definitely didn't feel as interesting, unfortunately. And I also didn't really like the amount of talking in this movie. Like, there is so much exposition in this movie that I'm kind of just praying for the insanity and the absurdity of the final act to just come back in and just like, okay, let's get into the really ridiculous stuff. Let's get into the really ridiculous stuff that the Fast and Furious franchise is known for. But let's do a little talking first. Let's exposition a few things first before we get into it. And it kind of takes a while. It happens a lot more in this movie than it does in the previous Fast and Furious movies, surprisingly. And this movie could have been prevented if Dom had just simply said, hey, yeah, there's this woman after me. She's kind of has something on me, but let's take her down. I don't know. I feel like it would have been easy for Dom to tell his entire friends and family, hey, this is what's going on right now, and we have to take care of it before I do something bad. It would have been easy, and the movie would have been over, and we wouldn't have gotten the absurdity that there was Fate of the Furious. So, Fate of the Furious, even though there are some fun sequences and there are some good performances, and admittedly it does look competently made, there's so many things that are laughable, both intentionally and unintentionally. Their chemistry is a bit off at times. There's a few plot holes where I'm like, you could have easily prevented this. A few plot holes in a movie where a guy takes a missile and throws it. Again, there's a lot of talking. It definitely doesn't feel... It doesn't, like... How do I put this? It's not as fun as the other ones, but I don't know. It's just... I didn't like this movie as much as... Well, I haven't really liked most of the movies in this franchise, but I didn't really care for this one. It's a bit too uneven for me. I'll give it 2 out of 4 stars. Stream it. So, who's your favorite Fast and Furious character? Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.